I am happy to tell you all our guest today is Celeste Cantu. Thanks to Rita, I sent the very impressive biography, I might add, of Celeste to everybody, but Rita wanted to add a few comments. So we're going to go with that
Uh-oh.
introduction.
Rita knows everything.
I know too much about everyone. That's how I got people to donate to the Water Education Foundation. But I never had to blackmail Celeste.
Oh,
Celeste, it may not look like there's a ton of people in this meeting, but really they are recorded. And as you know, the League of Women Voters gets around and they do a ton of good work. And when I came down to San Diego, I was kind of hiding, but they found me. So I'm really glad to participate. But I wanted to bring you especially to the league today because I've known Celeste many years, and she has a background in water that covers the whole state, and we don't see that a lot. I mean, we see people from north or south, but Celeste is unique. She grew up in the Imperial Valley, and there's a lot of wealthy farmers and other folks down there, but Celeste became a policy person, and I think that was I remember you mentioning about your great-grandfather, I think it was, and as I was looking, I saw some articles about him, and he really was an amazing man. He built that road from Tecate to Tijuana, and
Well, that was my grandfather.
And did a lot for the people down there. He had a policy of, like we talk about, blackmail, et cetera. He had a policy, it looked like, of taking money from the vices that people had, in Tijuana places and using it for the benefit of the people. So Celeste, I don't know if you inherited that part of it, but you did inherit the care for the resources. And one of the things that Celeste has done is, she's had many jobs. I won't get into all of them, but I really want to tell people about her one water, one watershed, because I think it is the philosophy that would govern all of water in California and the world, really. And as we sit down here in San Diego, and this league group, Celeste, has been really focused on many things, but especially the border sewage problem. And, it's truly one water, one world, one watershed, even though it's a bicultural, it's a bi-border, event. So
It's
I know
one watershed bisected by an artificial man-made border.
Totally. And that's what you get. And I know that, in your latest job where you're head of the board, you've held Commissioner Griner's feet to the fire, but of course it's not all her fault. And so anyway, I'm just looking forward to you just having a little give and take with these folks and telling them where you are right now in your life of water.
Well, where I am right now is looking at the Mississippi River. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri for a conference. I spoke this morning. So that's where I am right now. And before I get started, I'm looking forward to visiting with you all. I have a hard stop at 6. The debate's at 8 here, but I have another obligation. I need to go. I need to be downstairs pretty close to 6:01 or something. So
We won't keep you that long. We won't keep you.
Okay, so that works. Okay, excellent. I have a PowerPoint, but I think what we're going to do is just chat. And if I feel really compelled to show you some graphics, I will do that. So just give you a little background of what the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board is. So the water boards in California, I think, are very, very special in that the legislation that created them is, we call it Porter Cologne, after Mr. Porter and Mr. Cologne. And the idea was water is so precious and so scarce and important and so valued in California that the decisions about its water quality have to be made as close to where those decisions are implemented as possible. So instead of having everything centralized in Sacramento, we have 9 offices where those decisions are made in full transparency by a board of a diverse group of people in a way that everybody in that community could come and see what was being discussed. So the 9 different boards are organized around watersheds. So does everybody have a pretty good understanding what a watershed is, or should I do a quick review?
I think they do.
They've got it.
You never know. But so in a watershed, we share the watershed that we call the Tijuana River watershed. And the Tijuana River watershed starts in San Diego County, believe it or not, a tiny bit, flows into Tijuana quite a bit, picks up quite a lot of tributaries and a lot of surface flow, which is basically waste, and then comes back into San Diego. And you know where it goes from there. So we have several watersheds, small coastal watersheds. I mean, California is basically a series of small coastal watersheds around the coast. You might not be surprised about that. And then some major watersheds that are more inland. So for example, the San Joaquin watershed is a huge watershed, drains a big part of California and runs into the San Francisco Bay. The Sacramento watershed drains from the north and runs into San Francisco Bay, where they have a confluence. But we have a series of small ones. So our region is composed of the Santa Margarita watershed in the north, and that drains the area where I live. I live near Temecula, west of Temecula, in between Camp Pendleton and Temecula, if you would. It's called the Deluge area. And so that's the Santa Margarita watershed. That's part of and that goes all the way through to the coast and drains outside of north of Carlsbad, you might say, in Orange County, actually, further north than that. So we have the San Diego River watershed, the Tijuana watershed, and then some much smaller ones. So that together makes up the San Diego region, which is San Diego County and portions of the southern part of Orange County and the southern part of Riverside County. But we don't care about counties. We go by watersheds. It just happens most people think in terms of counties, which is a real conflict, actually, because people want to make decisions on political jurisdictions because that's how they spend their money. That's how they tax their money. But the watershed, the water drop does not care. It does not observe political boundaries at all. And we would be much more efficient in managing our natural resources, particularly water, if we did what John Wesley Powell, who was an early Colorado River explorer, said to do in the very beginning. He said the West water is so scarce and precious, you really need to organize everything around watersheds. And unfortunately, we did not listen to him, but Porter Cologne does. So that's how we get the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board. The 7 used to be 9, but now it's 7 board members are required by law to be diverse. We used to be very prescriptive, and each had a special discipline and category. The appointment secretary found that difficult to fill. It's hard to find somebody who is willing to spend the energy to do a good job. And if you do a good job, a lot of people hate your guts. So we're in a position to say, no, you can't do that.
Why isn't this working?
We're here to protect the water quality for the people in this
Get
area.
out of here.
I think we have a mute problem.
Excuse me. Mona, would you please mute? Thank you. We're good.
So, it's not a very popular position. And so we used to say you have to have these very specific categories. And the idea being water touches so many people in so many ways that you have to have a diverse board so that your chances of getting it right are increased. You don't have just one monolithic position. You have 7 positions that you have to compromise through. Our task is to balance protection of water quality with economic activity. We're not allowed to say, I don't care what it costs. We're going to do this work. And if you all go out of business, that's just too bad. We really are not allowed to say that. We have to balance. But of the utmost importance is people's health and the health of the environment. And we govern these decisions around what we call beneficial uses. And has anybody ever heard that phrase before besides Rita? Beneficial use? It's not very well understood. But for example, a beneficial use is water should be drinkable, meaning that you could drink it and, not get sick. Water should be swimmable. You should swim in it and not get sick. It should be fishable. It should sustain a fishery. You got to have fish can swim in it and not get sick. And there's a whole series of categories that we are tasked with protecting. Now, as the United States has become so industrialized, we have forever chemicals and all kinds of chemicals and fertilizer. And, we're not good housekeepers when it comes to watershed management. And for hundreds of years, the rivers have been used as basically the sewer flows. That's historically how everybody did it. The river took everything you didn't want away. And cities turned their backs to the river because it was the stinky, ugly thing that all the trash and the sewer went through. And then there's been kind of with the whole Rachel Carson and environmental movement, this turning of moving from giving our back to the river to facing the river, celebrating the river, saying, no, we want to recreate in the river. We want to see it. We want to enjoy it. We want it to be there to provide fish and, have a healthy environment and drinking water and all this stuff. So we decided that we should really protect the river. And then at that point, we get the Clean Water Act that was signed into law by President Nixon. And then we started really formulating codification of very specific things that we don't want to have more than, we'll be able to tolerate this much nitrogen in the water, but no more, this much phosphorus in the water. And there's 128 things that we're tracking. And then in addition to those 28 things that your water district will report on, they're required to report on it. There's a whole lot of things that we call emerging constituents. These are things that we don't know what they are. We have names for them, but we don't know if they have health problems or fishery problems or benthic community problems. We don't know yet. So we were watching those. But one of the things that we're spending a lot of energy now is the forever chemicals, PFAS and PFAS, and because they don't break down. We know they're carcinogenic. We know they have all kinds of problems. They are on everything you touch. You have them in your body. You have them in your food. You have them everywhere you can look. They are mainly a flame retardant. So we thought it was a good thing for infants not to burn up in fires. So we put all of this stuff on baby clothes and baby mattresses and baby toys and everything. And it turned out that was a really bad idea. First of all, not that many people burn up with flames. They all die for smoke inhalation before they even have a chance to burn up. So that was a whole dumb movement. And it turned out the ramifications were really incredible. Today, your sofa is required to have these forever chemicals in them because it's expected everybody sits in the sofa and smokes cigarettes and it's going to go up in flames. And, we just don't want that to happen. So all these things are there. So we really have to rethink our expectations out of everything. In San Diego, we have a particular problem because the Navy uses, fire suppression on boats is incredibly important. And they use chemicals, foam chemicals to make sure they don't have fires on ships. And that's all PFAS. That's exactly PFAS. And that's just one thing. It's everywhere. So this is a real big issue. But the issue that's captured the minds of San Diego, understandably, has been the Tijuana sewer flows. So this is not a new problem. Tijuana has always drained into San Diego and into the ocean. That's that drainage system that's always been since the beginning of time. There was a problem, you may remember, in the early 2000s and the late 1980s through 2000, where I don't know if people remember that, but there was a lot of sewer flows then. And I was from 2000 on, I was the executive director of the state Water Resources Control Board. And this was a big issue. And we actually were able to get that problem solved. We got it solved two ways. One, United States, the federal government finally came to terms saying, and this was my mantra, When sewer flows in the United States, we capture it, we put it in a pipe, and we treat it. That's how we deal with sewer. And everyone would agree, yes, that's how you deal with sewer. You know, we don't want it flowing all over the place. We put it in a pipe and we treat it. And so we convinced the federal government to build the international treatment plant to capture everything that flows south from Tijuana and treat it and put it into the ocean, which is now considered outdated, but that was the plan then. At the same token, at the same time, we spent a lot of energy in negotiations. Again, this is mainly the federal government with Tijuana, asking them to upgrade their systems, and they did. And part of that was money that came from the United States government through EPA that was invested in Tijuana. And so that solved the problem. What unfortunately happened on both the United States side and in the Mexican side in Tijuana was a lack of maintenance and reinvestment. Neither plant, and you know, people would point to Mexico and say, well, they didn't maintain their plant. You know, that they're a bunch of idiots. Why did they not maintain their plant? Well, the United States didn't maintain their plant either. We didn't maintain our plant at the same rate that they didn't maintain their plant. And so the whole thing failed. Tijuana has been growing tremendously. It is the frontier of Mexico. And so everyone goes, like in the United States, you go west, young man. And in Mexico, you go north to the frontier, to the frontera, which is the border. Everyone goes to Tijuana. So Tijuana's grown tremendously. They don't have anywhere near the money the United States has for these kinds of things. And when they prioritize their most pressing problems, when they look at providing water and sewer services to their residents, the problem of sewer flowing out of their jurisdiction into somebody else's jurisdiction is not their highest priority. They are struggling to get water service to people, and they are not successful. There's probably 500,000 people in Tijuana without any water service, without any sewer service either. I mean, maybe they're on a septic, maybe they're on a French drain, maybe they have nothing. So that, you know, that is a big challenge. So when we go to Tijuana and we say, you know, we really don't appreciate all this sewer that you're putting in the ocean and putting into the Tijuana River, we'd like you to stop it. You know, they say, well, thank you very much for coming. We'll try to do the best we can. We have these other pressing priorities, and we're probably not going to get to that. Well, they actually don't say that last part. They just say, thank you for coming. But the fact is, they're not probably going to get to that point. So we really need to rely on the United States government to maintain their international treatment plant, to go back to capturing the flows as they come through the Tijuana River. And we're making some progress, nowhere near as much as we need to, nowhere near as fast as that needs to be. Originally, when Dr. Maria Elena Hinar came in, she is an engineer. She has a PhD in political processes and international governance. She's brilliant. She is committed. She understands the problem. She has spent a tremendous amount of time in Tijuana and in San Diego. She completely feels our pain, and she has dedicated all of her budget for the entire border regions throughout Texas and Nogales and California, 100%, all of it, to this problem. And it's not anywhere near enough money. Our congressional delegation is very organized on this issue, as you probably are not surprised, but there's just not enough of them compared to all the other people in Congress. And, you know, I think we might all agree that our Congress has not been stellar in the efficiency of allocating funds and running the government. So the Biden administration was able to scrape together $350 million. At the time, we thought that was what was needed. That's what everybody understood. The water board demanded a work plan and a time schedule order after we gave them a cease and desist. And they dutifully responded and gave us this work plan. We believed them because we have no choice but to believe them. And then lo and behold, $350 million was not even a drop, that they actually need closer to $1 billion to rebuild the plant. The problems they were finding is they have this pump that doesn't work. Well, they want to replace this pump so that the process can work. Well, that pump is no longer made. There's no parts for that pump. There's nothing. It needs to be fabricated from scratch. Well, that's impossible. That's just way too expensive. It takes way too long. And that kind of problem was happening over and over and over again. And the international plant was simply not functioning as a wastewater sewer treatment plant at all. So they did a groundbreaking ceremony yesterday. I missed it because I was here in St. Louis. Otherwise, I would have been there. So they're starting on the first phase of expansion and repair. It is operating right now at a limited basis. We get a report every night as to whether or not it's up or down. It's been up for a while, but it gets overwhelmed at a regular basis. I've spent a lot of time down there. I now know that I need to wear a hazmat situation because of the airborne microbios, what is it in English? Microbes. So, we all have seen that the mayor of Imperial Beach, Paloma Aguilar, went into the hospital with a lung infection. She's not the only one. This is very serious. We brought in UC San Diego and San Diego State to do a health assessment. They brought in this drone organizing hazmat group from Texas. They flew in, and this is where the environment is so hazardous, humans can't even suit up and take samples. They suit up, but then they send drones in to take samples. So I was down there for that. It's fascinating. You get this real outer space feeling. These drones are zipping around, taking water samples and air samples. So we'll get that information. That was a couple of weeks ago. We'll get the results from that. I think they're already gotten. I just don't know what they are. So in spite of the fact that it looks like nothing ever gets done on the sewer flows, just keep on flowing, there's a tremendous amount of pressure being brought. Ambassador Salazar, who is the United States ambassador to Mexico, has been down countless, I don't know how many times, more than 20 times, to meet with his colleagues to try to, convince them. At this point, they are, it would be indiplomat of me to say threatening. So I don't know what the right word is because I am a regulator, not a diplomat. But the United States is mentioning to Mexico that at risk is a huge number of programs where we give money for USAID, we give money for DEA enforcement, we give Mexico money for various things. And so it's all on the table. But whether or not it's enough, I don't know. We have no authority. The water board has zero authority in Mexico. I mean, we have no standing. They say thank you for coming. We like you. You're nice, but we have zero enforcement with them, and we don't have any more enforcement than that either with the federal government in the United States. The federal government has taken the position that they're sovereign and not subject to the laws and regulations of the state of California. We take the position that they are, so we impose them. We impose fines, $35 million fine. And they say, we're not going to pay and we can't collect. So we are still fine. We're still going to fine. And, we still write it up. We still spend the energy as if they were really subject to our enforcement. But the fact is they refuse to be subject to our enforcement. And so we also work very collaboratively with the International Water and Boundary Commissioner. And we are very lucky to have one who really cares and is really knowledgeable and really trying to bring pressure and trying to make it work. She is 100% committed. But if you have no money and you scrape together all the money you have in your entire budget in the entire border region, forsaking Nogales and El Paso and all the other places, and they hate your guts because you've swept their programs off the books and you've given the money to San Diego. You know, that's all we can ask of her. So, you know, we hope that the Congress will allocate more money. But, you know, we're happy they have to make a budget, you know, I mean, there's other fish to fry that Congress is struggling with getting accomplished. So that's where we are on the Tijuana flows. I should also note, because there's a lot of confusion, there's two ways that pollutant flows are flowing into our jurisdiction. One is when the Mexican plants don't perform, they end up dumping raw sewage into the ocean, into their waters. But the currents, particularly in the summer, will bring it up to our area. The currents bring that sewer up. UC San Diego has a lot of sensors. We get tremendous amount of data. We get early warning. We know we need to close the beaches. So we have some knowledge about that. But then, so that's one pathway. And we have no control over that whatsoever. We have no mechanism to even complain too loudly about that. And the other is when flows, there's breakage in pipes, which is their pipes are breaking like all the time. And the sewer flows downhill, and downhill is to the Tijuana River, which comes into San Diego. And so that's the other way where we do try to influence. So we have a lot of questions here. So I just start taking them. The first one, Anne, are you going to do that? You're muted, Anne.
Before you start taking questions, could you just briefly talk about, I read on your website that you also have two other goals besides Tijuana River pollution issues this year for the San Diego Regional Water Quality Program. So one of them was tribal and one of them was biological. Could you just briefly explain that? Because those are the three things that apparently you're focused on this year.
Well, we were asked to identify 3 priority areas. We still have, you know, that's like 3% of our work. We still have 97% of our work, which is mandated. That is a whole bunch of other things. But the 3 priorities that we are trying against all odds to make some progress on are the flows from Tijuana, like you said. Tribal beneficial uses is a new designation. We have nobody has had tribal beneficial uses historically. Way in the North Coast, in the Klamath area, working with the Yurok and the Indians up there, came up with cultural beneficial uses years ago. And that was the first time anybody heard that. And since then, there's been a tremendous amount of commitment to articulate tribal beneficial uses. And they fall into a couple of different categories. One is for religious and cultural purposes. So one of the things that tribes do, for example, we have a lot of tribes in our area. I mean, with the Kumeyaay and the Pama, we have quite a few, and they have been here for thousands of years. But one of the ceremonies, for example, is a basket making ceremony where reeds are, like tule reeds, are taken out of standing water and chewed in the mouth. So they're put in the mouth. So bacteria is something that we worry about, to make them soft enough to be able to weave. That's just one small example. And so now we're looking at what is the water quality standard that needs to be achieved to ensure that if you did that, you would not be sickened. And that's just one example. So that's a tribal beneficial use. There is some controversy on making progress. Some people say, well, what is this tribal beneficial use implementation going to do for me? How is it going to step on my toes? And I always say, well, let's think, what's the worst thing that could happen? Water quality would be good for everybody. It's like, that's okay, guys. That's not going to be, that's something we should not be afraid of.
Yeah, right.
So we are working our way. We're doing that in conjunction with the tribes. It is a very slow process where we are learning to communicate with each other, learning to develop trust. One of the things that I am hell-bent to protect is the sacredness of these sites. So we can't do what we normally do and say, you know, geographically, this is the lat long for where this focus is going to be, so that everybody knows what we're doing and where it is. We do not want, they do not want to disclose areas. And we are honoring that because we think that they will be exploited and, you know,
Yep.
a problem, not for the first time. So we are doing things a little bit differently. The bacterial objectives is just another way to look at water quality. There are many different ways to approach it. A very popular one for a long time has been the health of the benthic community. So the benthic community are snails and clams. I don't even know if clams are benthic. You know, really small things that live in the sands underneath the water. You're not, you know, you don't really encounter them. Nobody really encounters them very much unless you're a scientist. And so the procedure has been you scoop up a bucket of this, you look at this under a microscope, and you can say the larvae for X, Y, and Z are doing really well. They're healthy, so that's good. That shows that a very sensitive animal in this area is thriving. And so we must be meeting the standards that we need to meet because there's lots of evidence of life here. But if you get a scoop and you're not seeing that, then you say something's wrong. There's some element that is making it not inhospitable for this animal or for this creature to thrive. We have all these surrogates that we do because we would never have enough money ever to do a complete and thorough job. So we've got to use indicators to help us make our decisions. And bacteria is another one, you know, looking at counting bacteria per, you know, a liter of water. So that's just one of the standards. And
Thank you very much.
Working on that for a long time.
We'll go to questions now, and Carol had her hand up first, and then Mary Ellen's next. Carol? Carol, you're muted. The most common words on Zoom, I swear.
Okay, so I was following the article. There's an article in the paper, and actually, I think it was one of my neighbors was one of the professors that was doing they were looking at hydrogen sulfide and bacterial levels down in Imperial Beach in that area, and I think one of the researchers found hydrogen cyanide. Right. Which turned out to not be the case.
It seems that way. Yeah.
So you know, I think the hazmat, the super hazmat drone thing was probably for the hydrogen sulfide and sorry, hydrogen cyanide.
Yeah, exactly.
Hydrogen sulfide is still way too high.
Yeah. There's other things that we should be concerned about, but that really, the cyanide, you know, rang everybody's bells. Right. And that's the kind of thing that you just kick out the jams and do whatever you can to try to figure it out. It seems to be a fluke.
Yeah. So, so it's probably not going to be a repeat, I hope. But I do have a question. Has anyone looked into a cheaper natural, some sort of natural solution, not solution, but maybe a partial solution for part of the sewage problem?
Yeah. So we see in other areas where concentration is much less and flow is much less overwhelming, that you can have wetlands. And we did this in the New River in Calexico. Yeah, wetlands, constructed wetlands or natural wetlands, if you should be so lucky to have them. We usually destroy them, so we have to construct them. And that can take out some bacteria and oxygenate and do some things. But the case with Tijuana, it is just too overwhelming. The BOD, the concentration is just too great. It would just kill the wetlands immediately.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
It's not a natural situation. You have this concentration of, you know, millions of people flushing, and not to mention the chemicals from the maquiladoras. you know, people get mad about all these chemicals. These are American companies who have moved from the United States because they didn't want to be regulated to Mexico. And, you know, then they just bring everything flows back. So it's a very toxic brew. But we do always have to look for natural. So I'm glad you brought that up. Like green infrastructure.
It's tough with Mexico because some of those American companies do not pay their water bills. And
That's right.
a lot of folks in Mexico don't pay their water bills either. So it's really hard to get a good system down there, but that's another problem. But I know you know the governor, and I'm wondering, you know, it seems like he's had his hands off this issue. At least we feel like we haven't gotten the attention from him. It's got to be on the federal level where the money comes from. But it seems like the whole water world doesn't recognize down here this problem in our watershed, because the other water problems are all more important. But once you get down here, you see this is really a crisis. How do we get public attention more so we can get that money?
Well, I've been talking to the governor's people about declaring an emergency, and the governor does not want to declare an emergency because he's afraid it's going to move from a federal problem and obligation to a state problem and obligation. And they're very worried about managing their liabilities, and I understand that. But I think the time is,
we haven't heard anything from him, because he has been absent.
yeah, well, I can't speak for that. But we do, I mean, people are sick and tired. I was told to shut up. I mean, I've been talking about this nonstop in Sacramento, and I went to Washington, D.C., and they didn't tell me to shut up. They told me to solve the problem. And I said, no, this is where you get it all wrong. This is your problem, federal government. It's not our problem. We're the messenger. So we do that. We've met with the governor. We have a new governor in Baja California, and as of today, we have a new president in Mexico. Both young women. Our new president is an American-trained PhD climate scientist, a brilliant woman. She was at Berkeley, and Stanford. People still talk about her, how brilliant she is. So I'm really thrilled about that. I think we're in a magical moment that we now have two women at the leadership role. And I have an article I want to share with you about women in leadership in politics. So I think that's really good news. The Baja California Norte governor is a young mother, had a baby, you know, I'm going to say a year ago, but maybe it's 2 years ago now because I lose track of time. So her response is, yes, we have to solve these problems. But first, we have to do economic development because people are starving and all these people are showing up and they need jobs. So yes, we have to do it. But first, economic development. So that's her mantra.
Okay, Mary Ellen, your turn.
Thank you. Here's how we get moved into first place. Nothing. It's all this granularity about what needs to be done and blah, blah, blah. We have to get their attention. I suggest that we go down to that border and stop vehicular traffic. Just stand in front of it. And we do this until they get the message. That border is the busiest border, I think, in the world. They are not going to want it shut down. That's going to get their attention. I will volunteer to go down on weekends if other people can do the weekdays. It is time to get serious.
You know, Mary Ellen, I want to introduce you to the mayor of Imperial Beach.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think that might be the quickest way to get where that's a very innovative suggestion.
But there is a suggestion of having a fee. There is a candidate running for a position in Imperial Beach, have a $2 fee for, you know, connection with maybe crossing the border. I don't know what the plan is, but it seems like, you know, if we had a little bit of a fee system to put to this, it wouldn't be like every 5 or 10 or 15 years trying to get this money, because, you know, as soon as this thing gets fixed, it's going to get the money for the next fix.
That's true.
Another great idea.
People go back and forth between the border for business and pleasure, and there's, you know, tourism taxes and this and that. Have you heard about this much, Celeste?
You know, there used to be, I mean, in the 20s, a tax, and it was to go into Mexico, and it was during Prohibition. And I can't really speak to how well that worked or, you know, what happened with that. I know there was a tax after that evaporated. There was a tax only on Filipino men going into Mexico, nobody else.
We
And
couldn't do that today.
so,
No.
yeah, so, yeah, I don't know, but that was both people going south. Now going north, I mean, if the federal government can't allocate the money to fix this plant, are they going to be able to allocate or not allocate, but pass a law to cause a tax? I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's a federal decision. It's not a state decision.
Oh, we have one more question, and that's from Mary Lou. Mary Lou, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. Thank you for this amazing talk, first of all. I did want to note that in Prop 4, there is $50 million included for the Tijuana River. We just talked about it a little bit yesterday.
Yeah.
That's going to be state funding, not federal funding, and
Right.
obvious.
But it's not for the plant.
Oh, it's not.
It's
Okay.
not for the plant. It's for a lot of other things around there. A trash boom, a park. We have some parks. I just met with the director of parks today. I had lunch with him here in St. Louis, California director of parks, Armando Quintero. We talked about this at length. It's for other investments around in the Tijuana River Basin, but not the plant.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I never wanted to note that the CDC has been invited to investigate the health effects of this.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
going to take some time, but I think that will have an impact if in fact, depending on what they find, obviously.
Yeah.
But to what extent, I mean, I know this has been discussed, but I don't remember what the answer was. Well, to what extent can you actually sue the federal government?
We have sued them.
That's what I thought. So what
Yeah.
happened?
They don't pay.
They don't care. I mean, we sued them. We won. You
We
know, it
won.
doesn't make a difference. They're judgment proof. They say we're sovereign, you know, we don't care. And so we go to court and their attorneys, the attorney general stands up and says, we're sovereign. You can't touch us.
Don't ask for the money, right?
Does it ever go to the Supreme Court or anything where you might get a different ruling?
I don't think we would get a different ruling from the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Good guess.
Okay. So I want to thank you so much. This has been so interesting. I think we could devote another hour just to asking you questions, but we do have a few other things on the agenda we need to clear out. So you can meet your 6 o'clock deadline. And thank you very much, Celeste. And thank you, Rita, for inviting her.
Celeste, real quick, 460 got passed. That's my report covering that legislation. And I know you were head of the board. Do you think this is a significant move to finally get some of those farmers to cease and desist if they have to pay more fines?
Some will, but for some, the money's not the issue. I mean, before crime paid, it made more sense.
This is taking water when you're told not to, there's a drought,
Right,
etc.,
right,
folks.
right.
Yeah, and so there's a fine for taking water when you're told not to, and they just said, "Oh, that makes sense. It's not very much. I'll pay." And so obviously that wasn't working. So we have a new structure now. We're really glad the governor signed that, and we think that's going to affect probably 80 to 90%. There's still going to be some who are saying, "I'm not going to let my almond trees die. I don't care if it's $1 million, $2 million. I have the money." You know, if you're Stewart, for example, yeah, he'll pay. But for the most part, I think it's going to be a deterrent. And thank God, you know, it's ridiculous to have a fee schedule that when you implement it, the scofflaws go, okay, happy to pay, you know, no problem. So I'm really glad we got that. I want to leave with a real quick thing. This, because I think I don't know if you can even see this. This is a UN, United Nations scientists report, talk about the low representation internationally, but also in the United States, of women in leadership situations around natural resources, specifically water, is really hindering the progress. So I want to congratulate you women We need more women. Women are the change agents. Women are the ones who can see the bigger picture, who can incorporate a diversity of issues and come out with a bottom line. So as we confront humongous problems that are only going to get worse, I mean, what we see in North Carolina with Hurricane Helene, all of the models say yes and a lot more, and nobody is safe. It's much extreme is going to be all the time extreme. Drought and flood, and all temperature. I understand it's super hot at home, but we need more women, and we need people of color who could be the change agents. So keep up your good work. You're the ones who help make that happen, and I personally really appreciate it, and would like to put some wind in your sails to
Thank
keep that process.
Thank you so much. It's good to hear that from somebody occasionally. Appreciate it. Would you send a copy of the link to that to Rita so she can send it to me and I can share it with the whole group?
Yes, I won't do it tonight, but I'll do it tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on.
Bye.
And real
Yeah,
quick,
Sheila.
one quick question for
Okay,
Celeste.
okay.
Thank you. 30
Fine.
seconds. How can we, as a group, volunteer? What's like one top thing that you can think of that we can volunteer to help you?
I think we lost Celeste.
We lost her.
But one thing is we can, look at the schedules and the what's happening at the board that she's on and be in touch with her that way. And,
Sheila, I thought you were volunteering to go with Mary Ellen down to put your body in front of the trucks. Is that not what you had in mind?
well,
No,
I
ma'am.
don't think it'd be that effective. I think they'd probably run us over, but I like the
No,
fee
no, but
idea.
I think if we talk to Paloma Aguilar, she's the mayor of Imperial Beach, she would very much like that. She is a very
Fabulous.
dynamic woman, and I suspect this is an idea we should not let just fade away. But I
For
have
sure.
to move on. I'm sorry, Sheila, we lost her before we could ask the question. So let me just go back to the agenda real quick. You will all recall, I'm sure, and you all read it carefully, I know. I sent to you a link to a 129-page draft report by the San Diego County called Waterways. I want you to know that I did read the damn thing, and I did write up a report, which I will send to all of you, but Don Glindert and I decided that we were not obliged to give a response. There was nothing in there that we would have wanted to comment on or had a position to comment on. And when you read my report, you'll understand all of that. So let's go very quickly to the updates because we have about 8 more minutes. As far as the San Diego County Water Authority goes, they are carrying on their business with their usual close attention. And frankly, no one mentioned their rate increase at the last board meeting. They're just looking to the future. And apparently the new general manager has actually been out looking for ways to sell excess water so that we do not have to pay as much money next year. This may affect our rates eventually, but he is trying to cut deals now with other water districts who can get some Colorado River water that we would normally take, but we don't need at the moment, and pay us to take that water off our hands and use it. So it's really interesting. I have never seen the Water Authority out there wheeling and dealing to sell our water. So things change, and we all know it will change again the minute it gets dried up and we need that water again. But that's how the water world works. Okay, pure water. Ruth isn't here. Okay, Dawn isn't here on desal. We just had our Tijuana River update. Mary Lou, did you have anything for us?
Yeah, I wanted to alert you, there is a heat advisory issued today for San Diego County mountains. It could reach 102 degrees and, whoops, I'm just reading it for you. And And the idea would be to stay inside or under shaded areas, drink lots of water. If you feel sick, call 911, never leave young children or pets alone in vehicles. And if you need a cool place to go, there's a Cool Zone website.
Yes.
From San Diego Partner Relay, if anyone wants to subscribe to this, or I send this to Ann, if I can get it in a timely manner to all of you, then you will get this alert.
Thank you.
The only other thing that I wanted to say is there's a new national heat strategy for 2024 to 2030 that looks across the federal government. I mean, I'm loving it because there's all this data and science that they want to do. So if anybody's interested, I can either send it to Ann or I can send it to each of you directly.
Why don't you just send it to me, Mary Lou, and I'll just send it to everybody.
Okay, I'll do that. Okay.
Thanks. Okay, and was there anything more you wanted to say about the fines now
Well,
for?
I'm glad Celeste was talking about that, and just to remind people, it's really about water rights. And as we know, in the rest of the state, there are these ancient water rights, and in the Imperial Valley where Celeste is from. And, you can't get anywhere unless you get these farmers to pay them or whatever. But if they want to keep using water, like the fine was only $5,000 or something, and they
Right.
just took the water. This happened up in Shasta. It's happened other places. So the bill got watered down, but it still increases the fines to $10,000 a day and more. And Celeste thinks it's a good thing. So I'm happy we followed it. I'm happy the governor signed it.
Thank you. Okay, I wanted to tell you that at our next meeting, we're hoping Carol is actually going to be trying to get us one of the people researching in the Tijuana River Valley to talk about what they're doing, which will be interesting. That our next meeting is November the 5th at 3 o'clock. I'm going to be sending to you the report I wrote on the county draft report on waterways, because there is an incredible amount of information in there about San Diego County, Imperial County, and Mexico along the border, because according to this report, we are all in one regional area. We're not, and I don't understand how Imperial County got in there, but I did not write the report. So I'm sending you a short report that I've written up on that. And Kathleen, did I send the notes that you took at the last meeting, or do I need to add that to what I send to everybody?
You need to add that.
Okay, I thought I did, but I couldn't remember. Thank you so much for doing that. And thank you to Connie for taking the minutes today. I hope all of you enjoyed this meeting as much as I did. I thought it was absolutely riveting.
So did I.
Good, good. Thanks, everybody. Good seeing you. And
Thank you.
we'll
Bye,
see you in a month.
everybody.
So